Today we're wrapping up our look at the story of Jonah. And Jonah is a story really about all of us. And when I say us, what I mean is people of faith. And people of faith, I know this because I'm a person of faith. People of faith are quite capable as being as wayward and as self-willed as this naughty little prophet. And we can find ourselves much less open to God and what He wants to do than even the unbelievers that are around us. And we're all capable of being just as disobedient, just as angry, just as hateful, filled with complaints, walking around in a sulky, pissy mood, looking down on those who are different than us. We're all capable of that. And people of faith are quite capable of having a way worse attitude towards God and our fellow human beings than the unbelieving world around us. And that we see this in the story of Jonah. In the story of Jonah, we've seen how God reached the unbelievers on the ship, how He reached the unbelieving great city of Nineveh and transformed all those people into fully devoted followers, in spite of Jonah's disobedience and stinky attitude. Today, we're going to see how God tries to finally get through and reach Jonah. He's the one that needs to be found now. At one point in Jonah's adventure, God's anger was directed directly towards Jonah, actually. You might remember he was tossed into the sea, and then God provided this great fish to swallow him. And well, once he had his big time out in that fish, Jonah got it turned around. He repented, and God gave him a second chance, and he was super happy about that. He was happy he didn't get what he deserved, okay? However, when the Ninevites repented and God gave them a second chance, he wasn't so happy about that. And Jonah couldn't appreciate the fact that he didn't appreciate at all the fact that they didn't get what they deserved. And he didn't like the fact that God's wrath had been turned away from the Ninevites. Why? Because he hated the Ninevites. And here's how the story goes. In chapter 3, we saw that the people of Nineveh believed God's message. And from the greatest to the least, they declared a fast and wore burlap clothing to show their sorrow. And when God saw what they had done and how they had put a stop to their evil ways, He changed His mind. So God did not carry out the destruction that He had threatened. And this change of plans really made Jonah angry. He greatly upset him, and he became very mad about it. And to Jonah, what God did in turning away from sending His wrath on the Ninevites, okay, it seemed very wrong to him. And so he was really upset about it. And so he talked to God about it. And he said this, "Isn't this what I said, Lord? Okay? When I was still at home, okay? This is what I tried to keep from happening by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew it. I knew you were going to do something good here. I know that you're a gracious and compassionate God, you know. You're slow to anger and abounding in love. You're all that. A God who relents from sending calamity. And I was afraid you were going to do that to the Ninevites, and look at what you did. You did it. I'm not happy about it." So then he said, "So Lord, you know what? if you're going to let them live, then you just take away my life, okay? And, you know, it's better for me to die than to live. I can't live in a world where the Ninevites are, okay?" And then the Lord replied to him very gently, very quietly, and He just asked him a simple, open-ended question. And He said this, "Hey, buddy, is it right for you to be angry? Is that really right? Is it right for you to be angry about the people of Nineveh, that I'm going to let them live?" Okay? Well, Jonah's answer to that question came in the form of an action. And what he did next was he left the city, and he sat down at a place to the east of the city, and he made himself a shelter. And he was setting up camp, and he sat in its shade, and he waited to see what was going to happen to the city. God had changed His mind once. Maybe God would change His mind again. And so Jonah going out to the city, maybe the stuff I said that in 40 days the city is going to be destroyed, maybe He'll change His mind and He'll really wipe them out. So I'm going to camp here to see what's going on and see what's going to happen. And so God tries to reach this guy. He wants to get through to him. So in verse 6 of chapter 4 it says, And then the Lord provided, just like he provided this great fish to swallow Jonah. Now he's trying to provide a way out for Jonah in his stinky attitude. So he provides this leafy plant and made it grow up over Jonah to give him shade for his head and to ease his discomfort. He was out in the desert and it was kind of hot. And so God provided this plant for him. And Jonah was really, really happy that he was able to get out of that heat. He was really happy about the plant. The word provide goes back to chapter 1. Like God provided this great fish, but at dawn, the next day, God provided something else. He provided a worm, which chewed the plant so that it withered. Seems like a dirty little trick, doesn't it? The plant comes up. Oh, this is wonderful. Uh-oh, next day, plant goes down because now God provided a worm. When the sun rose, God provided a scorching east wind, and the sun blazed on Jonah's head so that he grew faint. God kept providing, and I think what he was doing was he was trying to provide Jonah a way out of his stinky attitude. He's trying to reach this naughty little prophet, and it's like he's dealing with a 5-year-old, and I don't even want to say that because this is the 5-year-olds. I think he's acting worse than that. And then there's something going on here. Okay, it's way deeper than Jonah getting a sunburn or something like that. God sends a plant, he sends a worm, then he sends a great wind. Okay, and he's trying to get a message across to Jonah, but it's not working. Okay, he wanted to die after all that happened. He's out there in the heat again. Again, he wishes he would die. It would be better for me to die than to live. And then God asks Jonah the same question again. He says this, is it right, Jonah, buddy, is it right for you to be angry now about the plant? First you're angry about the people. Now you're angry. It seems like you're just walking around in a lot of anger, buddy. Is it right for you to be angry? And he said, it is. It is. It is right. He said, I'm so angry. I wish I were dead. There he goes again. Wishing he was dead. But the Lord said, you've been concerned about this plant, though you did not tend it and did not make it grow. It sprang up overnight and then died overnight. What God is telling him, in law, what they would say is that God is telling him that he doesn't have legal standing to bring suit, okay? He doesn't have legal standing to be concerned about the plant because he didn't create it, okay? It was given to him. And then when it was taken away, he was really angry. In other words, God gave him the privilege, okay, relief from the heat, okay, the discomfort that he was experiencing because of his stinky attitude. When the reality is where Jonah should have been was not outside the city. He should have been in the city, high-fiving it with all the Ninevites, right? You're going to be spared. Isn't this awesome? Isn't this wonderful? He should have been continuing to tell them about the God who spared their life. Instead, he goes off and sulks in his stinky attitude and self-pity and in anger. As a side note here, there's a lot going on in our world today. And a lot of us, okay, this guy included, has been born into privilege. That's the truth about guys like me. And maybe it's true for you. Through no actions of our own, we were born into a place that was prosperous. And then we still have this tendency to get all ticked off when we feel that some of our privilege is being threatened, okay? And we're concerned about the comfort that we've received, though we didn't tend it and we didn't actually make it grow. It was just something that was provided for us. And God asks us all, is it right for you to be angry? And Jonah answered for all. He says, it is, right? I'm so angry, I wish I were dead. But God says, let's have a little perspective here. Okay, Jonah? He said, should I not have concern for the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people that live there who can't tell their right from their wrong? They don't know up or down. They don't really have a moral compass that they operate by. Shouldn't we be concerned about them, and shouldn't we provide that for them? Shouldn't I be concerned about 120,000 people and their destiny, Jonah? And he adds this little line at the end. And also, there's so many animals there. If I destroy the city, the animals will be destroyed as well. Jonah looks at Nineveh repenting, okay, and avoiding this wrath from God and being forgiven by God. Jonah looks at it as some kind of great evil that God's engaged in. And not just an evil, it's a great evil, okay? And what is great goodness to God, and what is objectively great goodness being bestowed upon the people of Nineveh, to Jonah, it's a great evil because his mind is all messed up. He was okay when goodness was coming his way. When now he's not okay, he's ticked. At the start of the book, okay, we thought that God's big problem was this great city, this evil city of Nineveh, and the capital of the Assyrian Empire, this country that was ravishing the region and doing all kinds of terrible things, okay? We thought God's big problem was, what are you going to do about Nineveh? But it turns out that wasn't his biggest problem. It turns out that God's real problem was, what am I going to do about Jonah and his stinky little attitude, his smug superiority that he feels, and his resentful heart. Okay, that seems to be God's big problem now. Jonah prays just twice in this whole book. The first time he prays when he's going to die inside the fish and he's in the sea, he prays, God, let me live. God lets him live. The second time he prays, in the middle of this amazing triumph of life, saving this 120,000 people, and oh, by the way, all the animals as well, instead of being happy about it, Jonah says, just let me die then. Because he knew God was going to be soft on their sin. What a great description of God. I knew that you're gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. What a great God. And Jonah didn't see the goodness and the greatness in that description. He used it as a complaint to tell God, hey, what you did for those people, it wasn't right. Jonah hates the Ninevites, and he expects God to hate the same people that he does. But God is so patient with Jonah in this story. And Jonah goes on this tirade, and all he does in return, God says, Jonah, is it right? Is it right for you to be angry? Take a step back and get some perspective, okay? And God wanted to save Nineveh, and now God's trying to save Jonah. Let me make some connections for this story. When Jesus came into this world, the people that Jesus had the hardest time with were not the people that everybody considered to be the big sinners, okay? The kind of the evil people of the world, okay? The prostitutes, the tax collectors, people you'd obviously associate with in that time with a place like Nineveh, okay? The people Jesus had the hardest time with were people who considered themselves kind of like spiritually mature, those that were in the in-group, those who were people of faith, okay? He had a big hard time with them because they acted in ways that were superior. They felt like they had the high road, and they acted with a judgmental attitude and unloving hearts towards people who desperately needed God. And there's been consistent research that's been done over the years that unbelievers look at a lot of people of faith and they consider them, rightly or wrongly, to have this superiority kind of thing going on, this judgmental attitude, an unloving heart, just generally cruddy attitudes about them, okay? And maybe they're wrong, okay? You know, but maybe that's kind of a cop-out, okay? You know, because the reality is, if I look at my own life, I understand that I got some of this Jonah inside of me. And maybe you do too, because I think we all do. You know, I have this Jonah inside of me that says I want fairness, okay? But it's not what I really want. If I think of it personally, I don't want God to be fair with me. I want Him to give me His grace. I want Him to be unfair. I want Him to give me blessing even when I don't deserve it, which is exactly what He's done through Christ. And how many times do I forget what Jonah forgot? You know, and I wish I had a better way of saying this, but it's just, this is probably the best way to summarize the message of the book of Jonah, and it's this: people matter to God. We all matter to God. Not just those people or those people. Which people? All people matter to God, okay? People matter to God. The jobless guy, the homeless guy, the wealthy and successful guy. Everybody matters to God. God isn't like me, okay? He's not like us, okay? He doesn't put people in the categories and say, well, that group of people over there, they're the unreachable ones. Those are the ones that we should just, avoid or disdain, okay? He doesn't operate that way. People matter to God. Everybody, depressed people, educated people, divorced people matter to God. People that have different politics than you do matter to God. Conservative people matter to Him. Liberal people matter to God. Muslims matter. Atheists matter. New Age people and all kinds of, stuff. They matter to Him immensely. Okay, people of color matter to Him. Asian people, Hispanic people, Caucasian people. It doesn't matter. African American people, gay people, old people, young people. Everybody matters to God, okay? And here's the thing. When one of those people is separated from Him by sin, we are all separated by sin, by the way, okay? We are all Ninevites. We are all Jonahs, okay? It drives God crazy when He sees people who are far from Him. He wants them to draw near, and He wants them to gain the benefit of becoming fully devoted followers of Him. And so here's what He did. He said, what am I going to do about all these Ninevites that populate my world? All these people who are so far from me and who don't get it, who don't know how to live, who don't know their right from their left. And what am I going to do? And Jesus said, I'll go, Father. Send me. I will go into this world, and I'll go into their world, and I'll take upon myself the form of one of them, and I will go in, and I will teach them the right way, and I will do the deed. I will do the deed that's necessary to give them the ability to have your wrath turned away from them. I'll tell them how much they matter and give them the same shot that we gave Jonah, the same shot that we gave the Ninevites. Let's do this. And so Jesus came. And He came and he taught us, and then He hung on that cross. And that was a great evil that was committed against Him. But here's the thing, that as that darkness poured on Him, as the sin of the world poured on Him, God did something great on the cross. And he reconciled the world to Himself. He turned away from His wrath. Just like He turned away from Nineveh, He turned away from us. And instead, He bestowed His goodness, His forgiveness, His mercy, and His grace upon us. Then they put Jesus' body in the tomb, okay, after He hung on that cross, and they thought His brief, run at fame was over, okay? But on the third day, the God who spoke to the fish, okay, when Jonah was deep down in the sea and told him to barf him out on the beach so he could get out and do his assignment, on the third day, that same God spoke to the stone, and it rolled away, and Jesus rose again, and He formed this new community of the forgiven, the ones who have had God's wrath turned away from them, a community where nobody that joined was an outsider, and anybody who wanted in could come in and find full acceptance in that place, no matter who you were, okay, it didn't matter. The church, there's a place where no one is an alien. No one is a foreigner. No one, countries use those words. Cultures use those words, okay? But God never looks at a human being and says, oh, that's an outsider. I don't want that one in my community of redemption. Instead, He says, I want that one and that one for my son and my daughter. Because, why? Because people matter. All people matter to Him. And here's one more piece of the story, and it gets personal, and the way the story ends, I want to repeat it. If you've read this story, you noticed this before maybe, but it might be strange to you. God is talking to Jonah, okay? And Jonah's all ticked off about the plant dying and everything else, and Jonah, you have been concerned about this plant, okay? Although you did not tend it, you did not make it grow, should not I have been concerned for this great city of Nineveh? You care about this plant, okay, that was giving you some kind of benefit, but you don't care about all those people out there, okay? And oh, by the way, there's 120,000 of them, okay? And I care immensely about them. And oh, by the way, what about the animals? Okay? I mean, don't you love that last line? There's a lot of cows out there too, buddy. You know, shouldn't they live? You know, and it's almost turns into like a comedy. You should almost laugh at that line. But the idea is that at the end of the day, love wins and grace wins. And that's a good news for everyone. Everyone in that city, Jonah. It's good news for all of them. And oh, by the way, even the cows. It's good news for the animals too, buddy. And you're concerned about having a little bit of shade, and you're concerned about your national homeland, but I'm concerned about everybody, even the animals. Shouldn't we have that kind of thing going? And the story just ends right there. And you hope Jonah gets it right, but it leaves you hanging, okay? You have this guy just kind of holding on to this self-justified, kind of arrogant, self-righteous pride, okay? And we never find out. Jonah's just sitting there. And I think it's meant to drive you a little bit crazy. Sometimes movies will end that way. Books will end that way, where you're kind of left to fill in the blank, and it keeps your mind going. And I think God had a real plan in ending this book of Jonah in this way, because the point of the story is not so much that Jonah had a decision to make about what he was going to care for, where his affections were going to go, but rather the point is that we all have a decision to make too, okay? I have a decision to make. The story of Jonah is our story, and sometimes artists, writers will leave things hanging, okay? The idea is how will the story end? How did it end? What do you imagine? Now, the book of Jonah describes how God wanted to use this irritable, uncooperative prophet, okay, to save these unbelievers in this great Assyrian empire, okay, that he interacts with, and actually the sailors on the ship even too. And when it comes clear, the story is also about God saving the prophet. So what happened to Jonah? What happened? Now there might be a hint in the way this story is written, okay, that maybe kind of could hint at maybe that there was a good outcome for Jonah. The story is written in the third person, okay? He's recounting, it seems to be Jonah's recollections of what happened to him during this period of his life. And from that perspective, it's possible to read this book as a humble confession of him saying how messed up my heart was, how messed up my thinking was during this season of my life. He gives an unvarnished account of it, and that makes no excuses by leaving it hanging. And it's possible that Jonah recorded his story to provide a lasting testimony of his eventual conversion into a caring and compassionate, spiritually sensitive person. Maybe Jonah eventually figured it out. We don't know for sure. And maybe he repented one time as sincerely as the Ninevites had repented, but we don't know for sure. Jonah's story provides us with an honest, unvarnished, negative example, okay, from which positive lessons can be drawn forward into our world today, into our very lives. And after all, there's a little bit of Jonah in all of us. But thank God that his love, thank God that his resurrection power can transform not only shameful sinners, but also sinning saints. Would you pray with me? Father, we thank you that you tell us in your word that you demonstrated your own love for us in this, that while we were still wayward in our hearts, while we were still running away from you and running around with a grumpy attitude, that Christ died for us. And because of that, your wrath has been turned away. we find relationship with you through his death and his resurrection. We were once far from you. We were your very enemies, but you reconciled us to yourself. You made us one with you through the work of your Son and what he did on our behalf. We've been saved through his life and goodness. And Lord, we pray that you would be generous to us, that you'd help us to be people that walk around in this life, in this world, just with a sense of appreciation for the fact that you have saved us, that you have saved us from certain destruction because of Jesus. That the sense that we deserve nothing from you. We deserve nothing but punishment from you, and yet you relented and you turned away. And Lord, give us an attitude that walks around happy about that and that's angry about nothing. That looks at the people of this world, that as we walk around in this world, we interact with people. Make us the ones that shine your light into the darkness. Teach us to never curse the darkness, but to bring your goodness and light into it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Hi, I'm Pastor Jesse, and I'm so glad you joined us today. I hope the message was helpful. Ridgeview Church meets on Sunday mornings in person at 9:30 a.m., and we also have Kids Club. We'd love to see you. We also have midweek discovery groups that meet both in person and on Zoom. Send us an email at info@rcvc.life to learn more. Info@rcvc.life is also the best way to get in touch with us to learn more about our faith community, or to let us know how we can pray for you and support you. rcvc.life is also where you can learn how you can support the work of our ministry. We need your financial gifts more than ever. And we promise if you entrust us with them, we will put them in good use in providing others with the help and hope they can enjoy in Jesus Christ.
Even if I ran away, 'cause your love never fails. I know I still make mistakes, but you have your mercy for me every day, 'cause your love never fails. You stay. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Your love, yes now. Your love, your love, your love. The wind is strong and the water's deep. I'm never alone here in these open seas, 'cause your love never fails. Oh yeah, the chasm is far too wide. I never thought I'd reach the other side, 'cause your love never fails. You stay. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, and I don't have to all things, and you make all things work together for my good. And you make all things work together for my good. You make all things, and you make all things work together for my good. And you make all things work together for my good. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. You may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. Then when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Your love never fails. You make all things. You make all things work together for my good. And you make all things work together for my good.